Welcome back. Back with another banger. It's the React Files, where we react
to the creepiest, craziest, scariest TikToks. You shouldn't watch alone.
I hope you're having a good night. And if you haven't already, please take a second just to smash that like, subscribe, ring that notification bell, just to make sure the algorithm know what's up. Cause what we gonna do, y'all? Run these numbers up. That's right. Let's get straight to it.
The person in the Gojira suit was unknown at the time, but the story the actor has with Gojira is odd. This is a photo of him in the suit. Here is another picture. He got the acting job of being and wearing the Gojira suit, and the actor fell in love with it. He would wear the suit most of the time, even to the point that you never saw his actual face. Even when we take breaks, he would just wear the suit. The suit would sometimes heat up, but he didn't care. It was like he was addicted to the suit. Like, if it's calling his name. It's gotten to the point where he brings the suit home even though we tell him not to. He wouldn't really speak a lot, but he would say that his name is Goji, basically the nickname we gave to the suit. The last time he was seen on set, he was acting in the suit until he just stopped. This is the photo that was taken. Several minutes later, he would start to walk and stop again. His breathing was muffled, yet he was also breathing oddly. The director thought this was a joke, poking at him to get him back into place, but he wouldn't budge. After 2 minutes of oddly breathing, the director would tell people to check on him, and to make sure he takes off the suit. This was the photo someone took before the person saw what was inside. The man opened the costume to see that the actor was growing into the suit. His flesh would slowly rip away as he tried to open the pocket where actors would enter the suit. This suit was now his skin. Somehow his body deformed to the point that he was filling the inside of the suit. This is what they expected. This is what they found.
What y'all think about analog horror? The man in the suit. 1954, the Godzilla suit incident. Trying to look more into it, try to get to the bottom of it. But I know one thing, this shit creepy as fuck. Do y'all like analog horror? Let me know in the comments down below.
What happens in the dark must come to the light. And there's only so long you can lie before the truth is revealed. So when I say I got your ass, oh, I've got your ass. So, Captain Robert Falcon Scott was a British Royal Navy officer and explorer who led 2 expeditions to the Antarctic regions, the Discovery Expedition and the ill-fated Terra Nova Expedition. And you ain't gonna believe what he found. Ancient ruins all over Antarctica. Oh my days. I knew it. I just knew it. The continent was too big for no one to have never lived there. And remember, old maps used to show Antarctica green with no ice. So I'm not surprised that we're seeing all of these ancient ruins. If people only knew that there's ancient ruins all over Antarctica, even a pyramid. Oh my diddy. And who were these people? I don't know. And what happened to these people? I don't know. Was Antarctica a frozen wasteland? I don't think so.
Yeah, Antarctica is tricky for me. It's hard to believe since that place is so big according to the map, and we really don't got no pictures of it outside of expeditions. I don't know how I feel about Antarctica. What do you think? Let me know in the comments down below.
The Sumerians, the Phoenician Canaanites, the Egyptians, especially the Sumerians, all the ancient peoples of the world talked about the reptile aliens. Well, after the program, I got a phone call from a guy who's, later on I found out, is an extremely wealthy businessman in Las Vegas. He buys and sells hotels and commercial properties in Vegas, and he was the biggest there. And he said, I'm a Christian, and I have 5 men who work for me in my office, and they're Christians, and they all belong to the same church. We all go to the same church, and all 6 of us are in the office, and we were hearing you today. And he said, when you mentioned reptile aliens, I had to call you and tell you. Every year, we go somewhere in the world on vacation, and my company pays for everything. And he said, so I take, and all 6 families go together on a vacation somewhere. And he says, and last year, now this was like in '88, so he's talking about '87. And he said, last year we decided to go camping for a couple of weeks in Colorado. And he says, we were up in the mountains and we broke camp one morning, and we walked up to the top of this mountain. We were almost there anyway at camp, and then the next morning when we broke camp, we walked up to the top of the mountain to look over the lay of the land. And he said that out in the valley, we could see that there had been an area that had been cleared away. It was like a realm area that had been cleared away. And there was a circle of people out there, and they were all wearing robes, and they were all holding hands and swaying back and forth, singing and chanting. You could barely hear them. But he said, but it was very quiet where we were. We could see that there was some kind of a ritual dancing or swaying back and forth in a circle. They were all holding hands. And there was obviously somebody in the middle, like a priest or something in the middle. And he said, this is out in the middle of nowhere, that these people are out here with this thing that they're doing. And he said, we're up here in the mountains looking down on them. And he said, while we were standing there looking at them, all of a sudden, a second figure popped up out of nowhere. But it was bigger than the man that was in the middle. It's in the middle too, but it's much bigger. And it pointed up at us. And he said, and all the singing stopped, everybody stopped and pointed. And he said, we knew we'd been had. And he said, we didn't know what was going on, but whatever it was, it just popped in out of nowhere, pointed up at us, and everybody is now pointing at us. And he said, so we figured we better just get out of here. And he said, when we turned around, it was standing behind us. That thing which was down there was already behind us. That's how quick it moved. He said, when we turned around to run, there was a reptile alien standing behind us. He said this thing was at least 7 to 7.5 foot, to maybe 8 foot tall, had a reptile man's head, but it was a reptile head. It was very muscular, looked like a human body on the ordinary of a human body, but a reptile body, extremely muscular. And he said, and it was looking at us, and he said, it cast some kind of a spell on us so that the children and the women, no one could move. We were like frozen. And he said, and even nobody could say anything, nobody could cry, nobody could run, nobody could do anything. And he said we were staring at it, and it was looking at us, but it had control over us. It had locked us so that we couldn't move, we couldn't scream, we couldn't do anything. And he said, and this thing was gazing at all of us, looking at the children, looking at the women. He said, this reptile alien, and he says, we're just Christians in a church, but we saw a reptile alien. This thing was not of this world. And he said this thing was looking at all of us, and then he said it looked at the men, and the look he gave us, we understood. He didn't say anything, but we knew. He was saying, I'm going to leave you alone. But when I leave here, you better get out of here. And he said, the alien walked over like he was leaving, is gone. Just like they was gone. And he said, when he was gone, the moment he was gone, everyone came back to life. And the babies were screaming, the women were yelling, screaming. Everybody came back to life. Instantly. And he says, We ran like we were totally out of our minds, running back to the cars. We ran down the hill, got in the cars, and the women were screaming, the children were yelling, and he says, and we drove back, and he said it was the most incredible, horrible experience. And he says, all the guys in my office will tell you, we saw a reptile alien in Colorado. So when you're talking about, he says, so when you're talking about reptile aliens in the ancient world, I got news for you. There's one we know for sure in Colorado. We saw him.
Now that sounds like some Resident Evil 4 shit. With the roads, they all pointed up at, man. Could you imagine that run down the hill? Man, shoot a movie on that scene right there. A montage of the slow motion just hitting it. Boy. Let me know in the comments down below. You think that story was cap? Me? In a weird way, I believe him.
So if you didn't know, Elon Musk launched another SpaceX rocket today. And I personally believe him and other entities are trying to break the firmament. And as wild as this sounds, I believe this whole SpaceX thing is the new version of the Tower of Babel. Humans have always tried going extra measures with tons of stuff. And if you don't know what the Tower of Babel is, it was basically humans trying to build a tower so high that it would reach the heavens. They're literally doing the same thing with this whole SpaceX shit. Let's watch this rocket explode on the firmament real quick. I fast forwarded. That was a huge explosion. And I personally believe that the explosion looks like this because there's water above the firmament. The firmament separates the waters from above from the waters below. So this is the 3-story universe. The sun and moon is inside the firmament, and above the firmament you have the ocean of heavens, and above the ocean of heavens you have the heaven of heavens.
On Operation Fishbowl, nuclear detonations rent the sky 5 times over the Johnston Island.
The video I just showed you was an actual operation that went by the name Operation Fishbowl, and they sent high altitude weapons in the sky trying to break the firmament. So this has been going on. It's just that Elon Musk has brought it back. And if you ask me, this explosion and this explosion looks similar. And it's so wild to me how America is a Christian country, but tells people that the earth is a globe, when clearly it says in their own Bible in Genesis that there's a firmament above us, and the firmament separates the waters from the waters. I ain't gonna say too much about that, but just ponder on that contradiction. We're in the age of Aquarius and the truth is being revealed. Revelations, the great reveal, the lifting of the veil. Comment and let me know what y'all think about this video.
Operation Fishbowl. I heard there was an operation like that somewhere out there in our history. Didn't know what it was called. Didn't ever see any videos or photographs. To see them compared side by side pretty much and be talked about, I think that's pretty amazing. But yeah, it's obviously been going on for a long time. What do y'all think? Y'all think SpaceX is the new Tower of Babel? I think that's a reach. But, hey.
That's a super drink shit. That's survival of the fittest. Yo, that's the super drink shit. He's got the challenge. Let's go.
I'll tell you when I'm good, B.
Hey, a little water. Salud.
We all drink off this. I'm drinking from the cup.
Yo, one thing for sure, I know my man had a mean hangover. Yo, that was crazy.
flipped alphanumerically. I just told you that everything in creation is math. The labiatum, the lips, are the creative instruments. So now, if you're going to take the creative language and the creative instruments and you start to speak English, here's what happens. And by the way, these revelations came out in 1998 with healing codes for the biological apocalypse. If you're just beginning in this kind of like initiation into reality, and to the truth that shall set you free, you might want to start with healing codes for the biological apocalypse and then graduate to where we now are, love the real Da Vinci Code. So Dr. Palaio back in 1996 had a couple visions. He saw numbers and letters on his windshield, and he learned that there's an alphanumeric for every letter, just like in gematria. For every letter, there's a number, an alphanumeric relationship. And that he took the words, the English language, like you see here, A to Z, 1 to 26. So it's 1 through 9, 1 through 9, 1 through 8. You see that? Now, you take the words faith, trust in God. Oh, isn't that interesting? They're all 8s. The infinity sign. Well, so then what you do is you take the number 8. And in the Bible, the Creator never adds, never subtracts, always multiplies. This acceleration of your divine inspiration and your spiritual evolution is exponentially accelerating because it's multiplying. And so you take the numbers 8 and do the multiples of 8. 1 times 8 equals 8. 2 times 8 equals 16, well, 1 plus 6 is 7. 3 times 8 equals 24, plus 2 plus 4 is 6. 4 times 8 equals 32, where 3 plus 2 is 5. You see the countdown pattern, don't you? 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 9, 8, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. See it? Which is the what? The English alphabet backwards. So the sacred languages of Hebrew, ancient Aramaic, Babylonian, and Sanskrit were sacred. They were considered sacred languages. Why? Because when you spoke them, the resonant energy had an immediate divine intercommunication, communion, and a divine interpersonal connection. You had this heartfelt, loving understanding. So now you take, interesting thing, you take the English alphabet backwards, add it to the English alphabet forwards. 8 plus 1 is 9, 7 plus 2 is 9, 6 plus 3 is 9, 5 plus 4 is 9. It's always 9. What does that tell you? It means that there's a perfection in the English language.
And unfortunately, in 2010, I was selected to go down to the South Pole Station in Antarctica for an entire year by Raytheon Polar Services as an employee of a third-party contractor for the National Science Foundation. I functioned in a dual-role capacity as a tradesman and a firefighter. My responsibilities required me to be more informed than most of my crew and offered me complete access to the facilities. What I learned from this unique experience needs to be shared with the entire world. The technology at the South Pole Station certainly can do what it is presented as its primary purposes, and unfortunately, much more. The IceCube neutrino detector is presented as a passive listening device for the purposes of the science as presented. But I'm going to skip right through the chase, folks. I have provided documentation that proves that the 5,160, what they call DOMs, that are embedded in the ice can actually transmit at 2,047 volts each. That gives us a long list of things to consider. It is effectively a multifaceted directed energy weapons platform that I will list rapidly a few things that it can do. Vehicle detection. We're learning that these off-world craft, on-world craft, ours or other nations, are also emitting neutrinos. So this makes the South Pole Station effectively an air traffic control station for this new level of equipment that nobody's discussing. In addition to the ability to detect neutrinos and the exotic vehicles, I've provided documentation that shows that this is also a system for faster than light communications. In the past, Gary McKinnon has hacked NASA, found the off-world fleet, the list of captains, and it's apparent that if we have faster-than-light vehicles moving throughout the system, we're going to need faster-than-light communications. This is that facility. Unfortunately, I have other bad news. The season that I was there, 2010 to 2011, we converted from construction to operations and maintenance in both the elevated station and the detector array. Unfortunately, when they first fired it up, that was when we had the earthquakes in Christchurch, New Zealand. There was 2 incidental shots before they were able to target it correctly. This is an earthquake generating device as well. This is the weapons of war that we have to deal with now and what Raytheon's hiding. There's an ELF system at the South Pole Station that when I arrived, I was told it was off, dismantled, and completely defunct. In my work, I will rapidly just tell you, I had to figure out the circuitry for certain other repairs, and I found that this system is in fact completely energized, up and running, and being utilized with the other systems for nefarious purposes as well. The Atmospheric Research Observatory is in what we call the clean air sector. I witnessed myself a very powerful green laser shooting out of the top of this facility into the cosmos. This, I believe, is a secondary form of long-range communications and or a defense system. I am not saying that we need to be scared of anything that's out there, but please understand the military-industrial complex is happy to invest all of your money in alleviating their fears. A question of power comes into play for all of these facilities that are present. I assure you, I knew what was going on, I knew the load demands of the facility, and all of these new items exceed the demand for the systems that I was presented. I am doing due diligence and research. I believe there is either a secondary power supply there that is either nuclear, that was there prior to the start of the Antarctic Treaty, which prohibits such things, and or that there is some sort of exotic power supply system there that just is not in the verbiage of the treaty, so it negates the responsibility to the parties involved. I think that pretty much covers it for time. If anybody wants to find out more, I have a website where all this information is at. For brevity, I'll wrap it up, but you can go to deciphering.tv. I've documented all of this stuff, and information is available.
Yeah, that looked like it was Stephen Greer who shook his hand at the end. But man, talk about creating an earthquake in New Zealand. A green laser shooting out into the cosmos. Man, what do you think? You think that's all cap? I think it's possible.
Are you aware of the hidden spells of the English language? Why do our words even matter? You see, words are powerful spells that can literally change your reality. In this video, I'm going to shine a light on what you're really speaking into existence through etymology. What is etymology? Etymology is the study of the origin of words and the way in which their meanings have changed throughout history, or his story. The English language has many hidden and secret spells in which you can use to empower or disempower yourself with. One of the first things they teach us at school is how to read and write. In order for us to be able to read and write, we have to learn skills such as spelling and grammar. Grammar is based off the old French word grimoire, which means magic book of spells. The alphabet is just symbols put in different sequences that create spells. When creating sentences, you are sentencing someone to your spell. A sentence is to give someone a term. With every word you speak, you are literally casting a spell, a curse of cursive serving like a prison term. It takes real eyes to realize the real lies of how our words can be as deadly as swords. So if you want to know what a word truly means, look below its surface, dissect it, and look at it from many different angles. Words can be viewed forwards, backwards, phonetically, etymologically, with numerology, and split to arrange different anagrams. All languages are a single confused babble mixing different grammatical and phonetic fractals. In other words are vibrations. Words have power. Words can change your reality. Words can make or break you. That's why they say that even though your tongue has no bones, it is strong enough to break a heart. So be careful with the words you speak to yourself and others. Understanding etymology and word spells can help you to spell without cursing yourself and others. Notice how I said understand and not understand. To understand means to stand under one's authority. No one stands above or below you, me, or anyone. To understand is to stand from within. You see, the basic tool for manipulation of reality is the manipulation of words. If you can control the meaning of the words, you can control the people who must use the words. To give you an example, when you are purchasing a property, you have to sign a contract with your lawyer. Even though the terms and conditions are written in English, it can seem like gibberish to most. This is because it is written in legalese format to confuse those that are signing the contract. It's all just a manipulation on linguistics, and that is the con. A con is to deceive someone by lying or tricking them into believing something. The word mortgage is derived from the old French word which means death pledge. That's why it takes you approximately 30 years to pay it off. About the same amount of time for someone that has been sentenced to life imprisonment. And I wonder why so many people call this world we live in the Matrix, or Mars tricks, the mother's tricks. In order for the trick to be played, one must tune into their television. Tells lies to your vision. That's why it's called a television program, because your subconscious mind is being programmed. The question is, what sort of information is your mind being programmed with? So for most people that want to stay informed with the latest news, they tune into their favorite news channel and watch the latest broadcast of those casting abroad to cast their spells. To channel is to tune into a certain frequency and channel their favorite programs. To make channeling easier, they created the remote control, so they could control you remotely. In Hollywood, they call it movie magic. After watching your favorite programs or movies, you have the option to see the movie cast. If we look at the term Hollywood, it actually derives from the holly tree. The holly tree was used by druids who were known for being priests, witches, and also wizards who used its branches to craft their magic wands for casting spells in ancient times. These rituals still go on today. Hollywood movies are forms of sorcery using psychology, subliminal messages, and manifestation through what is called lesser magic and bewitchment. Some even use the term law of attraction. That's why actors and actresses use scripts in movies as they speak things into existence. Even the news reporters are reading scripts as they broadcast their latest information from around the world or from your local government. They are all just actors and actresses playing their role in programming you.
I think that's pretty crazy when you sum it up like that. Some of these words we use every day. And we all watch the credits from the movie cast. What do you think about it? Let me know in the comments down below. I think it's crazy.
What happens if you put your head inside of a particle accelerator and turn it on? Kinda like this Hot Wheels loop, particle accelerators accelerate particles to nearly the speed of light. And this guy, Anatoly Bugorsky, was unfortunate enough to stick his head inside of one while it was on, and this is what happened to him. Scientists use these giant circular machines, also known as atom smashers, to see how subatomic particles like protons behave while traveling at the speed of light, doing tests like crashing them into each other and other complex science stuff. And yes, I said at the speed of light. Well, almost. They get it up to like 99.99999% the speed of light, because 100% is still impossible at the moment, but hey, we're getting close. They do this by accelerating subatomic particles like protons in a long circular vacuum tube that's colder than space. They start off in a smaller loop where they use electric currents from really strong batteries to get the particles moving fast, and magnets to keep the particles on a stable path as they curve through the loop to be fed back into the batteries and get even faster. This feedback loop gets them fast enough until they're fed into a bigger loop to reach even higher speeds. And they inject a second set of protons here so they can play Ring Around the Rosie with each other and just keep getting faster. They're then fed into the final loop where the two sets of protons are accelerated in opposite directions so they could collide into each other and do science. This right here would be the Large Hadron Collider, the biggest particle accelerator in the world at 27 kilometers in circumference, where the protons travel the entire circular distance more than 11,000 times per second. So yeah, it's fast. The LHC is in Switzerland and contains 1.8 billion kilometers of wires, enough to go the distance of not around Earth, but of Earth's entire orbit around the sun twice, or from the Earth to the sun and back 6 times. Anyway, so that's cool and all, but now that we know what a particle accelerator is, let's put our head inside of one. On July 13th, 1978, a scientist named Anatoly Bugorsky was working on the U-70 synchrotron particle accelerator just outside of Moscow, which is much smaller at 1.5 kilometers, but the speeds are pretty much the same. So there was an experimentation room in this lab where the accelerated protons are exposed to open air for a brief moment, and they had bare safety measures in place to make sure that no one walks in when a live beam is going. But Bugorsky showed up to the room 5 minutes earlier than he was supposed to. Somebody forgot to lock the door, and the emergency light that signaled a live beam burnt out. Say hello to Murphy's Law. He enters the room and doesn't realize there's a beam of protons traveling through the open air in front of him because they're both silent and invisible. He bends over to have a look at a few monitors and accidentally puts his head directly into the beam of trillions of protons traveling basically the speed of light. That's 76 billion electron volts of energy passing through his skin, skull, brain, and out the other side. But the craziest part? He felt no pain at all, and there wasn't even a hole in his head. That's because protons are so small that they physically passed in between the empty space of the atoms in his own head. And the voltage didn't stop in his head, it just passed right through it, which is why he didn't die from 76 billion volts. All he reported was his entire field of vision being overcome with a light brighter than 1,000 suns, but a light that only he could see. This light was inside of his head. He kinda tripped out for a sec, but once he realized he was fine, he logged the experience and went home without telling anyone. But the next day his head started to swell, so he went to the doctors and they calculated the exact path the protons passed through his head in. Although he survived, in the years to come he lost hearing in his left ear, started having episodic seizures, and the nerves on the left side of his face were destroyed, freezing his facial expression in place for the last 45 years.
How much false can you find? And there's lots in history. I was looking around the internet and came across the images of the 1893 Chicago World Exposition, and it blew my mind because it looked like ancient Rome in the middle of downtown Chicago. And as I looked at it further, well, here's another one in Philadelphia, here's another one in St. Louis, in Buffalo, in San Francisco, and then as soon as they were done, they tore them all down and threw them in the garbage. That just told me there's something wrong with all of these. The story of the expositions is a gigantic lie. And I think it's so huge of a lie because I think they're right at a bridge point when so many things about the 1800s that seem strange and weird, right as this sort of period ends of unbelievable strangeness, and all of a sudden these fairs spring up all over the world with impossible buildings we're talking about, which are colossal structures. Chicago built 700 acres of fair in supposedly less than 2 years. St. Louis built 1,200 acres of exposition buildings. One of the buildings in Chicago, the manufacturers building, would house 300,000 people. There's a giant statue in the middle of the lagoon. It was called the Golden Lady, and it was known as the Statue of the Republic. It was 65 feet tall. They say it was covered in gold leaves that have copper underneath, but others speculate it was actually made out of solid gold. So you're talking 65-foot high, potentially solid gold statue. We're talking giant structures and looking like ancient Rome with towers and domes and columns and the most fine, ornate pieces to them in these record, unbelievable times. Then as soon as they're done, chuck them in the garbage. Like Jackson Park is a swamp. So supposedly they had to drive down tens of thousands of wooden stakes in order to support the weight of everything. They dug out massive lagoons, lakes. They had a canal system that ran through the entire exposition. They also had an above-ground electric train. An electric train, well, where's the electricity coming from? That's running around the park. They had a moving walkway down by the shore. Not enough people are asking, where does this technology come from?
Just to frame it, if I'm not mistaken, the Chicago Fair was the first time people had seen electric light.
Tesla's the one who got the electricity contract for the Chicago Exposition, and it was certainly more than all of the lights anyway that were in New York City at the time were at the Chicago Exposition.
Yeah, it must have been mind-blowing for most of those people who had only seen gaslight or candlelight at night to see that city lit up in such a way. Again, count the way it's 1901. We are told, whether it's true or not, the idea of being able to electrically do anything hasn't been around that long.
And this fair is bizarre. This is supposed to be Tesla's fair, where he managed to somehow move electricity from Niagara Falls to Buffalo for the fair. No one's really explained how he actually did that. And at the middle of the fair is a 395-foot-high electrical tower, on top of which, of course, is a female golden statue called the Goddess of Light. And this thing was lit up by, some suggest, 500,000 electric light bulbs. Again, when you look at the photos of this thing, it's just, where do they really get the power from?
I mean, think of what it would take today if you had a place with no electricity and no way to pipe it in, the generators that would have to be built.
For example, there's a building that went up for the Barcelona Exposition in 1888. It was claimed to be the fastest built building in the world, 5,000 square meters, capacity for 2,000 guests, 600 rooms, 30 apartments, and it was supposed to be built in 53 days. This is supposed to be a time of horse and buggy. The 2-year building times are actually impossible unless the two most likely theories would be either A, they had a technology that they're not supposed to have, and it really was built in that time frame. Even if they built them, they had to build them out of marble and stone in record time, or the buildings were already there. They'd been there for hundreds or thousands of years, fixed up, refurbished, repainted, hence the term whitewashed, which is the term that was used for the Chicago Exposition, which was paint all the buildings with this brand new spray paint that they had just developed to spray paint all the buildings in record time, so you couldn't tell if anything was old or anything was new.
How long did these things tend to stay open? When they built these things, supposedly over 2 years, which is the narrative, how long were they there for?
About 6 months.
6 months for the public to come.
And then what was amazing, for example, in St. Louis, 2 days after the fair ended, they brought in a demolition team from Chicago with explosives and blew the thing up. They actually used dynamite to blow it up, and they say threw it in landfills. The things like the World Fairs shows there was a time in our past, and even not that far in our past, where humans seemed to be at a completely higher level. Human living and human knowledge were constructed into the buildings using cymatics, using sacred geometry. These fairs, they're so important to study because the history that we know right now as history was invented at the time these fairs were going on. One of their underlying nefarious purposes was to teach a historical narrative to the population that they were supposed to believe and agree with. And scarily, the world we're walking into today is in some way, has its origins during the time of these fairs.
Yeah, I find it fascinating that it takes 2 years to build and destroyed in 6 months. Every time I think of the World's Fair, I think of MIB, Men in Black, the first movie, where he's talking about it. And it made it seem like it was such a joke as to what he was saying when describing it. But I wonder if it maybe was true. Maybe it was truth hidden in plain sight. Maybe. What do you think? What do you think of the World's Fair? Let me know in the comments down below.
So the way this worked was they put human beings inside an fMRI machine. They had them look at images and figure out what the patterns are, like translate from image to brain patterns. And then, of course, they would hide the image. So this is an image of a giraffe that the computer has never seen. It's only looking at the fMRI data. And this is what the computer thinks the human is seeing. Yeah. Now, to get state of the art, here's where the combinatorial aspects, why you can start to see these are all the same demo. To do this kind of imaging, the latest paper, the one that happened even after this, which is already better, uses stable diffusion, uses the thing that you use to make art. Like, what should a thing that you use to make art have anything to do with reading your brain? But of course, it goes further. So in this one, they said, can they understand the inner monologue, the things you're saying to yourself in your own mind? Mind you, by the way, when you dream, like your visual cortex runs in reverse, so your dreams are no longer safe. But we'll try this. So they had people watch a video and just narrate what was going on in the video in their mind. So there's a woman, she gets hit in the back, she falls over. This is what the computer reconstructed the person thinking. See a girl, looks just like me, get hit in the back, and then she is knocked off. So our thoughts, are starting to be decoded. Yeah, just think about what this means for authoritarian states, for instance. Or if you want to generate images that maximally activate your pleasure sensor, anything else. Okay, but let's keep going, right? To really get the sense of the combinatorics of this. How about, can we go from Wi-Fi radio signals, sort of like the Wi-Fi routers in your house, they're bouncing off radio signals that work sort of like sonar. Can you go from that to where human beings are, to images? So what they did is they had, a camera looking at a space with people in it. That's sort of like coming in from one eye. The other eye is the radio signals, so sonar from the Wi-Fi router. And they just learned to predict, this is where the human beings are. Then they took away the camera. So all the AI had was the language of radio signals bouncing around a room. And this is what they're able to reconstruct. Real-time 3D pose estimation, right? So suddenly AI has turned every Wi-Fi router into a camera that can work in the dark, specially tuned for tracking living beings.
Yo, that sound like some Dark Knight shit. Batman. Yo, that's crazy. Lucius Fox. I didn't think shit like that was really possible. But a few years later, it's here. How do you feel about that? I feel like it's kind of spooky that my Wi-Fi router could understand how I look when I'm doing stuff in front of my house or inside my house.
Invisible. Bam, I'm at In-N-Out. They said go to In-N-Out. I just came right over. It was right down the street. If you look in the background, it is packed. If you look behind me, cars wrapped around the building. Drive through way over here. Line down there. They taking orders way down there. But they do they got the warning sign here? Yeah, but they try to put a clear coat on it. Yeah. Boom, there it go, warning. You see that motherfucker got a clear coat. Certain foods and beverages sold or served here can expose you to chemicals including acrylamide and many fried or baked goods and mercury and fish, which are known to the state of California to cause cancer or birth defects or other reproductive harm. Can y'all see it? See, oh, you gotta go right here to see it. Bam! See how they try to put the clear coat acrylic on it? Uh-huh. And these are the facts. Caught their ass slipping too, They thought I thought I was gonna have to go inside to see something. No, caught them right at the door. I do feel like going to go get me a grilled cheese, though. That's just toasted bun. Now, let me go. Need some facts.
Never been to an In-N-Out. I think that's a food chain on the West Coast. Man, it's crazy how they put in that clear sign, though. Like, who's gonna see that when they walk in? Shit, grilled cheese sandwich? At that point, you don't even know if they're serving real cheese. Let me know in the comments down below. You ever been to an In-N-Out? Have you seen this sign?
You will fear me.
I recognize you, but I'm not afraid of you. Not anymore.
Our children, as designated by our language, aren't even ours. Parents are a pair who rents. Our governments, especially our courts, don't treat a parent's right to control and direct the upbringing of their child as a fundamental liberty. We're forced from a young age through many types of indoctrination, and our parents are helping in this process. Look at the word childhood. A hood is used to cloak and hide. The etymology of children is chill and dren. Chill means cold. Ren is a name meaning a strong and healthy individual. So children are strong individuals who must be chilled, made cold. Stay with me, this will all come together. In Ballantyne's 1948 Law Dictionary, the term human being says sea monster. When we see monster, we get the definition, a human being by birth, but in some part resembling a lower animal. In the Oxford New English Dictionary of 1901, a human is defined as belonging or relative to man, as distinguished from God or superhuman beings. So these definitions are telling us we're monsters. The word live backwards is evil. Our language is telling us we're born as monsters who are bleak and lifeless to a pair who rents us out to the government and other corporations that indoctrinate us. Our childhood is spent under a cloak and we're evil when we live. Our sentences are made up of words. The word sisters in Greek mythology were fates or witches who controlled the fates of man. Every word we say directly affects our reality and ultimately our fate. The Egyptian deity Thoth is said to have invented language and writing. The original purpose was to use words for magic. The words write and write are pronounced the same. A rite is a ceremony or ritual. Whenever we're writing with words or speak, we're initiating a ritual. Books contain chapters. A chapter often refers to a sect of a secret society or religious order. To page someone is to summon them. Pages in books made of words are summoning things to enslave or imprison our souls. The word grammar comes from the French word grammaire or grimoire. Grimoires were ancient magic books which contained instructions to summon demons. We wake up each morning. A wake is a funeral party held for the dead. At the beginning of each day, we say to each other, "Good morning." Mourning is what you do when you're sad for the loss of someone or something, by calling it a good morning. It's pretty masochistic if you ask me. We then go to work at our occupation. When we occupy something, it can mean being occupied by a military force, like in war. Many occupations are focused on money and the dog-eat-dog mentality. The dollar bill comes first before the environment or even each other. Therefore, we are committing war against each other during each day we work our occupation. We are the military occupiers. An urn is for the ashes of the dead. For the average 9-to-5 worker, it would have to be one of the weekdays in order to earn a living. I agree, you would have to be in a weekdays to earn a living. During the week, we become weaker and weaker until finally it's the weekend, and we have become weakened. Somebody or something who is weakened has no power. And during the weekend, many of us turn to drink alcohol. Alcohol comes from the Arabic word al-kul, which is a body-eating spirit. It's also the source of the word ghoul. We drink booze or booze. Booze are synonymous with spirits who scare you, but what can you expect when you're drinking spirits? Alcohol has always been a medium for entities to flow through, and the effects in part demonstrate.
You know what? I'm just about to learn sign language. You know what I mean? Because half this shit... Yo, this shit is mind-blowing, man. Like, yo, what the fuck I've been saying all these years. Because I was programmed to say this shit. Like, they got me. But we're waking up. Let me know in the comments down below. What you think?
One question from me. Where does any synthetic molecule serve the living?
They don't.
Right.
I mean, none.
And am I right in suggesting that a medicine, by definition, is something which contains synthetic molecules? Something that is registered, patented, and put into the market as a medicine?
Absolutely.
Proper. Right. So what I'm learning from you, Dr. Young, is that a quadrillion-dollar enterprise is at work amongst us, decimating, culling the human family.
Intentionally.
Intentionally, using synthetic molecules, which by design are cancer, AIDS, all of the bogeymen we could dream up.
Yeah, it's for the purpose of sterilization and population control. There's too many people on the planet we need to get rid of. In the words of Bill Gates, at least 3 billion people need to die. So we'll just start off in Africa. We'll start doing our research there, and we'll eliminate most of the Africans because they're deplorable. They're worthless. They're not part of this world economy. So they have their rights taken away, and they're suppressed and they're experimented.
And the multilateral agencies and the health and regulatory so-called authorities and agencies appear in the main to have become weaponized and appear, I again use the word appear advisedly, we're not casting judgments here, we're taking depositions, listening to expert testimonies, appear to be weaponized and appear to be working in collusion against the living men and women of the soil. Is that a fair statement?
It is. It's not a bacterial war. It's a systemic poisoning war, and they're using chemical warfare against all of us.
You can forgive me. What do you want? Oh, God. Oh. Oh, shit. 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 Oh, fuck.
And that's a wrap. I hope you enjoyed tonight's rabbit hole. And if you haven't already, please take a second just to smash that like, subscribe, ring that notification bell, just to make sure the algorithm knows what's up. Cause what we gonna do, y'all? That's right. Run these numbers up. Thanks again. Until next time.